Who are the top 10 prospects in the Guardian system? No, I'm asking, who do you think? We're going to get into the top prospects, who's the most overrated, underrated, sleeper. We're going to go deep on the guys who are the future of the Cleveland Guardians on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. We cover your team every day. Cleveland Guardians, in this case, being your team that we cover every day. Just some general housekeeping before we kind of lay out the show. I want to start off with, we will get into the rule changes in the after show. That is official now. Kind of a slow day for baseball in general. We did want to take a moment before we start talking prospects to give a shout out, say our thoughts are with Nic Enright, who was taken by the Miami Marlins in the expansion. I am butchering it today, in the Rule 5 draft, not an expansion draft. And he has, I believe, non-Hodgkins lymphoma. I hate that news for anyone. I hate that news for a guy I thought was 100% guaranteed to make that bullpen. I was sad to see him go, but I was very excited for him to have that opportunity. Hopefully, this is one of those situations where he's just going to blow through this and we'll see him pitch this year for the Marlins.
Yeah, I believe it's Hodgkins lymphoma that he has. I'm not up on the difference.
Yes, you're right. It's Hodgkins lymphoma. I'm not sure the difference.
Yeah. But he put that out on Instagram today, and the Marlins reporter Craig Mish had that, and he's completed his first round of treatments already, and has the good support of a good family, and there are Marlins organizations behind him, and it seems like he's in good spirits. Mom, who has been a listener of different Guardians focused podcasts, let us know on Twitter that his first round of treatments is doing well, and he's a hard worker and he's going to fight this thing. And she said he's doing well with the treatment, and she will be sure to let us know when he makes his MLB debut. So they are confident and they are ready to fight. And we wish all the best to Nic Enright to put this behind him and defeat it and get back on the field. And so we can watch him make his major league debut this season.
I know this is, Locked On Guardians, not Locked On Health, but from what I've looked at and saw, I got confused. Liam Hendricks has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hodgkin's lymphoma is more predictable, easier to treat, has better outcomes. So, not necessarily going to say anyone is good, but it seems like this is the preferable one to get in this situation. So, we wish anyone well who's suffering or has family members suffering, because that's one of those things that affects the whole family. And we look forward to Nic Enright kicking cancer's butt. I can't say the word I want to say on our family-friendly podcast, and getting back to pitching this year. Now, having said that, how do you want to attack this? Everyone's releasing their prospect list. Let's see. We've seen not perfect game. We've seen Fangraphs with Eric Longenhagen. We've seen Keith Law. I think Kylie McDaniel might have as well. I don't have ESPN Insider, so I respect Kylie. I don't read his stuff, or it's just, I don't have an account, and I don't steal, I'm not like, hey, someone give me your login.
Yeah.
I think MLB has updated theirs. So I think it's Baseball Prospectus did. I think everyone has essentially done it now. Baseball America did a while ago. So I think Keith might have been the last, or Kylie was the last.
It was him, it was Kylie or Keith from the last. So I think every major outlet has already had their Guardians prospects out.
And we waited so we could just change our list after seeing all of these, right? That's why.
Correct, of course, yes. I can tell you exactly who is 1 through 10 on everyone's list right off the top of my head.
I have no idea, but I could say there were literally no changes outside of us being like, okay, that one's a little weird, that one's a little different. Oh, I didn't have that info, or that info. That's our discussion. It's more like, oh, maybe they have information we don't have. Sometimes people have that kind of advanced data we can't always get on minor league players. So you just try to look, but I don't think anyone's had any influence on us on any level. It was just more of like, hey, it's interesting to see what others do. But
no, I mean, I started my list back in January, mid-January, and I just finished it a few weeks ago, but I put mine out over on my newsletter a few weeks ago. So people who have read that have already seen my list, and but I'm also constantly updating my list too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking through things, and I'm looking at video because I'm trying to finish my scouting reports for the full list on my newsletter. So
I got to figure out my
that's all
Justin
there.
Boyd slotting. That's one of those that'll change.
Yeah, I
things.
haven't done that either. He will not be in either of our top 10.
No,
Spoiler alert.
He's somewhere between like 18 to 24 for me. That's where it's looking like he'll likely slot for me.
Yeah, same.
You can go back. One of our top 10 videos ever. It's not hard if you look at views. Was when I did a list in August. And I will say the one problem with that midseason list is when you are doing this show every single day, my time to watch minor league games is sometimes limited. It's a lot more of a statistical heavy list. So if you're like, wow, you've really changed things from August to now. Well, I got a chance to watch more video. I got a chance to talk to more people. Like that's the ever evolving nature of these things. My off-season list is always much stronger than my in-season list. That just, especially because with me doing the draft, I am very focused on the draft until about July. And then I switch over to minor league stuff as much as I can while doing major league stuff. So if you want to go and compare for fun, you can go dig up that video from August and laugh at the changes. But do we want to talk about who just missed before we dive into our top 6 or top 10 to 6?
Yeah. Go give me your two guys, 11 and 12, who didn't quite make it. Who are the guys that you would have considered for the top 10? I mean, this is the thing that's hard, right? Like we're doing a top 10 because it's in the interest of time. And I don't know if anybody wants to sit here and listen to us talk about 20 players back and forth, although we're going to talk about
we both
10.
go to I'm sitting at 58 right now. Well, 59.
Yeah. And I wrote about 80 when I put my list out. So I could go deep too. And that's the hard part about this. And this is a deep system. Like there are guys who are probably ranked like 13 and 14 on this list who could easily be in the top 10 somewhere else. I mean, not that either of us have talked about where we're going to put Justin Boyd yet, but MLB Pipeline, I think you pointed out to me on the Reds list on Pipeline, 16? He was 29 or 15th.
Yeah.
And then he comes to Cleveland and Pipeline puts him at 29. So that just tells you where the system is. So not that that's a scientific method to do things, but
I will say
the depth.
My 8 to 14 is like very close. Like you could put them in a can, shake them up, drop them out, and they'd be, this grouping is all about the same overall value. It's just more like when they get to be this close, I kind of look at them and I go, who would I be sadder if they traded? Like, that's just kind of like, it's more of a gut check than anything else. Like, which player would I be more willing to give up? And that's kind of the final separator after you go through everything else. It's just kind of that gut feel of like the valuation on them.
But if you're more willing to give them up, what does that say? Like, you got to be able to give up something to get it. It's got to hurt to trade somebody, right?
Yes,
if it hurts.
It's like who hurts the most. Like that's what it kind of gets to through 8 to 14. Like which of these guys would hurt the most? My two just missed, and at various times they were in the top 10 as I was working through it. So Joey Cantillo and Gabby Arias. Cantillo is just the health. If he had pitched well this year, he might have been top. He did pitch well. If he had been healthy, he might have been top 5. Like I think he has that much potential / ceiling. It was a down year for Gabby. Also had some health issues. We were talking beforehand, and I asked you, I go, is the ceiling or is the middle range outcome between Gabby Arias and George Valera that different? And because I was debating that all day, it's like Valera does walk more, but and then if they aren't that dissimilar, isn't Arias have to be a higher rated prospect because his defensive value is so much higher? So, it's that stuff where these guys are all really close. But that was my 11 and 12. If you're curious, I will throw out DeLauder and Campbell were the next two. That's that like top 14 grouping before I get that next tier.
Yeah, I really wanted to find a way to get DeLauder in the top 10. Obviously, there's a lot of talent there, but I think we have to see some things play out with him. You want to see how he's got a unique swing. It's a little bit different. He leaks a little bit early, and it has worked for him so far. We don't know how it's going to work in the pros. He has a limited track record. So I think it's a little, we're talking about him not being the top 10 now, and he could come out and perform like crazy and we're going to be like, wow, you guys really were low on him. You didn't believe in him. So we'll see there. I've had different iterations on my list over the last month, like I've said. So my list has actually changed over the last few weeks. I originally had Will Brennan in my top 10. I do not right now. He is number 11 for me. I am still a huge believer in Will Brennan. Yeah, it's just, factoring in different things, learning more things, watching more video, hearing more things, and I moved some other guys back up. So Will Brennan to me, I mean, even being 11th on this list is really good. Still think there's a chance he could be, I don't know, it's an outside chance he could be an everyday regular. I think it's more likely he's a platoon hitter. He's a guy who probably sits more against lefties, but does everything else, pretty well. He doesn't get to a ton of power. So he's just outside the top 10 for me. And then DeLauder at 12. I had a hard time splitting those two up. Ranking the outfielders for me was hard this year. And that's not something we've had to worry about too much in the past, right? Like you've got Valera, you've got DeLauder, you've got Brennan, you've got Choria, now you have Justin Boyd, you have Petey Halpin. Like it's finally hard to rank the outfielders. And like I said, my process kind of starts with, okay, I rank the starting pitchers, and then I rank the shortstops, and then I rank the outfielders. Like I put them all in order, so that way I already know how I feel about those players, and I don't move anybody positionally above anybody else unless I've made a change. So DeLauder's 12 for me, just outside there, and obviously he could perform like a top 10 prospect, depending on where he starts this year. I hope it's Lake County. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I could see it being Lynchburg, but Lake County to me would be a good start for him. But those are my two just missed. Do you want to go through our 10 through 6 on the other side here?
We're going to have to go through 10 through 6 on the other side. It's just the timing of it. We're going to have to go through 10 through 6. We're going to have to go 10 to 1 on the other side. Also, overrated, underrated, sleeper. We have a lot to talk about. There's no way it's going to all get covered in the full audio show, so prepared. But we will be discussing in depth 10 through 6 in the next segment. In a moment, though, after we talk about our good friends over at Built Bar. I talked about them if you heard about yesterday's show. Right now, it's free shipping through Valentine's Day. So you want to hurry up and get on that order because that's tomorrow, right? Now through Valentine's Day. So I assume that tomorrow is the last day of free shipping over at BuiltBar.com. And, you can go to Sam's Club and get Built Bar. You can go to Walmart and get Built Bar. And those are, they have solid flavors there with that. But if you want to get the full experience, you want to try some of these more interesting, like the brownie batter puff or the double chocolate bar. If you want to get the maple donut, the caramel apple, the banana cream pie, you got to go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to save 15% on your order. And like I said, right now through Valentine's Day, you get free shipping on top of that 15%. But then also, if you don't feel like waiting, drive over to Sam's Club, drive over to Walmart. Right now, you can get a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff at Walmart. And at Sam's Club, you can get a 13-bar box with brownie batter and churro. Churro is one of my favorites. That is, I would recommend, if you are a member, going to Sam's Club and getting that one. Check out BuiltBar.com today or go to Sam's Club or Walmart. I just gave today, one of my students was starving, didn't have a snack. I gave her the birthday cake, which currently is unavailable. But how many fifth graders are going to eat a protein bar? Not many. She ate that one down, I can tell you that. So go check out Built Bar for yourself. 10. I talked about the other guys first. Why don't you dive into your 10th first?
Number 10, this wasn't an easy one, but this is a guy I'm looking for to have a big year. I know he doesn't have a major league track or a pro track record yet, but I decided that Justin Campbell was probably going to have getting ahead of myself breakouts. I think Justin Campbell will be the next pitching prospect that kind of jumps out everybody for Cleveland. So I went with him at number 10. I think there's a good chance that they've already worked with him and he is going to hit the ground running for them.
I've been reading Twitter and seeing some sources that say that Will Brennan will be the starting center fielder for the Guardians by opening day. I'm kidding. Those aren't good sources. That's me being a jerk there. Will Brennan is a solid 4th outfielder right now. I still wish there's a lot of reasons I wish the pandemic hadn't happened. I do think if there had been no pandemic, he might still be a 2-way guy. I did believe in him as kind of a swing lefty. I would have been curious to see if he had gotten a chance to continue that. He's got a good arm. He can play all 3 outfield spots. Obviously, if he was announced as a 2-way guy. Yeah, I don't know how well he's going to ever hit lefties, and that is an issue with this team in general. It's definitely not built to hit them, but I don't know, the overall package is like 50 to 55 across the board. He's really safe. He's going to be a big leaguer for a long time. It's just a question of is he going to be like average, or is he going to be like Robbie Grossman-esque, or is he going to be with those peaks and valleys? I mean, different hitting profile. He's not going to walk as much, but or is there a little bit more? Could he be closer to someone like Mark Kaneha in terms of ceiling? And yeah, those are former Oakland Athletics that I'm comparing. But I think I'm curious to see where it goes. He's a safe bet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's one of the things about doing this list is, do you prefer risk? Do you go with upside? Do you go with guys that you feel like are going to hit their ceiling? Like I don't know what Will Brennan's ceiling is. I mean, obviously we know like George Valera probably has a higher ceiling, but probability wise, it's more likely that Will Brennan hits his ceiling versus George Valera. But you've got to kind of, decide how you feel about the safety of those and how you what you value more. Do you want to go with 9? Or do you want me to go with 9?
Sure, I'll go 9. I couldn't really separate my outfielder, so I have George Valera here. And I know you've heard a lot of hating, quote unquote, hating for me on Valera. I just think there's a little too much hype on him right now. There almost has been from day one. Like when he was 3 years ago when I was hosting this podcast and people were telling me it was a plus hit tool and I'm screaming it is not. I don't care what anyone has to say, that I don't see anyway, like statistically and through video. A pretty swing is not a plus hit tool. The problem until like 10 years ago was really pretty swing equated plus hit tool. And that's why we had a lot of weirdness in baseball with guys who had quote unquote plus hit tools not hitting. He gets the ball, he hits. There are some concerns in the upper and lower part of the zones with Valera. And I'm curious to see, is that going to be a continued issue? Was it just fully exploited this year because he was at levels where pitchers could do that? And then I think one of those things that kind of gets not reported as much with him is health. Like health is an issue here. Like it doesn't get brought up a lot, but Valera has a higher ceiling than Brennan. Like Valera has a chance to be a guy who can make it to a few All-Star games. I mean, he's Carlos Santana if everything goes well. Like he is, that's who he is. And that is a really good profile. But my concern, even more so than maybe a slightly groove swing or a swing that, where there are things you can take advantage of, is the health. And I mean, he's only had one really in-depth season in terms of games. I believe last year was the first time over 90 games. I could be wrong with that. But if I'm wrong, then it's the first time over 100 games. Health has been, and yes, there was COVID, but even in other years in the minors, he just hasn't been healthy enough to get out there. So that is to me, the thing that people aren't fixated on that is a little more concerning. I mean, not to say that the other stuff isn't a concern, but yeah, I'm betting on ceiling. I think he's going to be an above average regular. I'm more concerned with him as a platoon guy than Brennan, honestly. And then, I do see, I feel like if he turns into Carlos Santana, I'll be ecstatic. And there's just going to be a lot of disappointed fans out there with that outcome.
Probably. I mean, yeah, he's definitely the victim of the hype machine, not of his own fault. And also because he was a 2017 international class signee, like we've been talking about him for 5-6 years now. So I wonder if there's some prospect fatigue there, which does happen. I mean, that happened to Nolan Jones. I feel like it's maybe happened to Tyler Freeman a little bit. I don't know. And you get these guys who've been talked about for like 4 years and they haven't made the major league debut. You start to be like, well, when's this guy going to make it? Is he even that good? And you start to pick more flaws and instead of just kind of looking at them. But you're right. Health is definitely an issue. We know he had hamate surgery again. That would be a second hamate surgery this offseason. Not the second time he's had the surgery, but it'd be a second surgery for a hamate issue ever. So it's definitely a concern. I still think, I think he can be an average regular for sure. I have him at number 8, so I'll skip ahead there and tell you that. But number 9, I have Logan Allen. I didn't drop Logan Allen. A lot of people are actually pretty high on Logan Allen, higher than I am. And I thought I was a big Logan Allen guy last year, but he did hit some scuffles at AAA. I think he'll correct those. But he also, the velocity is probably going to be a limiter for him. He's got to be fine. I know the fastball has a unique angle on it, makes it tough for hitters to pick up. But it was tough for him at AAA with that. So velocity is going to be an issue. But I still think he has a chance to be a good number 4, number 5 starter. We're talking like a good number 5 starter, not just like a guy that you plug in and, he's not Adam Plutko. Like Adam Plutko and Josh Tomlin were your number 5 starter types. I think some years or they were your 6 starter types. Allen's better than that. I think he could be like a high end 4.
Yeah, I think here's the funny of us is he's my 8. So we flip flop Valera and Allen. And listen, I think for as much
and
as
that was for me upside. That was upside for me. It was upside for Valera versus maybe less upside for Allen.
Fair enough, and I would agree with that assessment. But I liked the likely outcomes of Allen more than the like. Here's the thing: if Logan Allen struggles, he's probably just going to be a really strong reliever. Like there's enough in there that you feel confident he's a major league pitcher. I think he'll be fine. I think a lot is made out of a little. AAA was very weird this year. Was it Tim Herron on the show who talked about the baseball was slippery? A lot of guys saw big walk rate jumps when they got up there. So at the same time, I caution anyone who's like using walk rate data for hitters after the promotion to AAA to show massive improvement, because it seemed like the ball was slipping and the pitchers were walking at a much higher rate. Logan Allen, I believe Tim Herron had the issue. I'm trying to think who else. Like I said, I think Andrew Mizziazic was about the only guy who got called up who didn't have that issue.
Nic Enright did have the issue.
Yeah, Nic Enright. Yeah, those two were about it. Everyone else had a bit of a struggle with that promotion. And Columbus is also not a pitcher-friendly park at all. So there's a lot of reasons that a player could struggle. And just like maybe we're putting too much in George Valera before his struggles this year in the top and the lower part of the zone. Like I said, for me, like that was a component with his health. Logan Allen's at a clean health sheet, so that's one of the reasons he's also higher for me. I think he's a pretty solid bet to be a back end 4-5. I think there's deception, and then the secondary offerings are strong. Like there's no doubt he has enough of a mix to be able to get out righties, get out lefties, and yeah, it would have been nice if he had been like the typical Cleveland guy to add some miles per hour, some RPMs. That hasn't happened, but I think there's enough. It's a good athletic profile. I'm a believer in his potential. Now I will say, do I think he's like the best lefty in the system by ranking? Yes, because he's safer. I think Cantillo could be the better pitcher, but I mean, after all he has missed the last 2 years, Allen is just such a safer bet. So that's kind of, I really debated going back and forth on those two, but in the end I went for safety.
Yeah, for sure. Safety. You don't have to go by one measure either. Like you can say, well, I feel more comfortable projecting this guy's health based on track record. I really like this guy's upside, even though there's risk there. Like you don't have to do it one specific way. It's always about balancing everything. Like, this guy, if you feel a certain way about somebody and you're willing to live with the risk on one guy, but maybe not the other, and value safety, like in Will Brennan, there's many ways to do this. So speaking of that, you want to do 6 and 7, because my number 6, I should say 7 and 6. My number 6 is going to fall into something we just talked about.
Why don't we take a break and come back and do 6 and 7 and kind of see where the show is taking us, see if maybe we end up making this a multi-show event or how we end up handling it. But I think we should take our next, take a moment, come back with your setup that you got some interesting things brewing here at 6 and 7. But first, let's take a moment and talk about our good friends over at FanDuel. Listen, if you were one of the many people who maybe lost money on yesterday's Super Bowl due to that interference call that was all the talk of school, maybe not the time you want to hear, but let's at the same time, always good to get a head start. And if you had a bad beat, remember, it's the time for the no sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's a bonus bet back if your first bet doesn't win. So if yours was a first bet on FanDuel, guess what? You get your bonus bet. You get the no sweat first bet. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Again, I say bet the over on the Guardians. That's my one that I feel pretty confident about. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So, do you want me to lead off with 7?
Yeah, go ahead and give me your 7
Okay.
and 6. So
My
we can get
my
to the
7 and
top
6
5.
is I have 7 as Cody Morris. There are health concerns there. A lot of people are really down on him. I noticed nationally. That was one of my big takeaways. I think people don't believe in his ability as a starter. Some projection systems, I mean, he missed a ton of bats. Like his stuff does not come around often, and there is a degree of underrepresentation of the value of relievers outside of the baseball community. We see relievers go for big trade hauls. We see the value in some of these guys. And then prospect wise, we tended to lower them, and even if Morris is a reliever, he's still a top 10 talent to me. I am that much into that arm. It's just, again, health is the concern, but I think if he was healthy, he'd already be part of this rotation if he hadn't missed part of last year. And he would be it's very close to a big 4 for me. And then at number 6 is Angel Martinez. We can debate the position, bat plays, good data that we've seen or heard from, sources, and, young for his level, high performing, does a bit of everything. Isn't he a bloodline guy as well? His dad was like a backup catcher for
Sandy
a long time.
Martinez.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's, he's got it all. Like he's really got everything. I feel like if he was in a different organization, he might be a more hyped prospect. He'd be top 100 everywhere. Him being outside of the top 5 is just due to the depth of this organization. I really strongly have made it, a few debates about flipping 6 and 5, but he is sitting at 6 for me.
Number 7 for me was Brian Rocchio. I guess I dropped him a little bit more than most people have, but I still think there's a good chance for him to be an average regular. I've said before on the show I have some concerns about him having an Ahmed Rosario type profile, where he was a top prospect for a lot of people. Maybe not. I mean, Rosario was even higher than Rocchio. Rosario was super high on a lot of top 100 lists, even not just the Mets list. Rocchio hasn't quite gotten that far, but he's a little over aggressive at times, and there seems to be some defensive lapses. Not a huge concern. I think he'll still be fine. There's power there. I wonder if he'll be a little too aggressive, and that's going to limit his hit tool. We'll see. He's still pretty young, so I might be a little bit lower on him than most, but I still think he can be an average regular, maybe a 2020 guy, which maybe if he plays good defense, I'm underrating him, but that's because I like Angel Martinez a little more, but I don't have him at 6. I have Cody Morris there for the same reasons you do. I'm still high on Cody Morris. I've been high on him since I saw him for the first time, I think, in 2019 at Lake County. Just hasn't been healthy. Yeah, if he was healthy, if he had been healthy the last 3 years, really, I guess I can't count 2020, but he would already be in the rotation, like you said. There'd be no concerns. But if he ends up being a reliever, he'll be an impact reliever. It's just a matter of how many innings you can get out of him. 50 to 100 innings of Cody Morris is going to be a good player. I like the stuff too, and I just hope they can find a way to keep him healthy, because in some capacity he's going to impact this team this year in some role. I still feel like he breaks camp with the team. I know you said you think that he might go to AAA and be a starter. I think he'll be on the team to start. So that's where we're at, 10 to 6. What do you want to do with 5 through 1? We're quickly getting towards the end here. It might be hard. Do you want to say?
I think we should say 5 to 1 till tomorrow. We'll tease that.
Okay.
Let's steal some of our superlatives. Do you want to do our sleeper, breakout, overrated, underrated? Let's pick 2 of these and do these instead, and then we'll save the other 2 in the top 5 for tomorrow.
Let's do overrated, underrated today, and then tomorrow we'll do sleepers and breakouts. So overrated, underrated. Who is your? This is not just our list. This is just not calling anybody out specifically. This is just like general, the conversation around certain prospects that we see, whether it's fans, maybe other writers, or just even maybe we can pick each other's own list, because I'm not going to be offended if Jeff tells me I'm an idiot for ranking one guy somewhere he doesn't, or if. Maybe
that's very much something I have a history of doing with you as well.
You are such a jerk. Yes. So.
I always call you an idiot and then throw things. So let's start with overrated. I'm going to throw a name out there just because we've had people ask in the comments. He's appeared in the top 20 of some lists, and it's Tanner Burns right now. And it's just not to say I think Tanner Burns can be a major league pitcher, but I think he's a reliever. When he was drafted, I talked about my concern was he wasn't maintaining velocity through a college season. Cleveland does a lot of great things, but he still had issues. A lot of those secondary offerings have backed up. I feel like a lot of people talking about him now are talking about who he was a few years ago, that he's not quite, some of that stuff isn't as sharp as it is. And some of the data I see. Now, this isn't to say he can't come and turn the world on fire. He can't make me look like a fool. He absolutely could. There is, the pitch mix to be interesting, but I think when you look at the limited spots in the system, he is quickly on his way to being a reliever. And there are other guys who've underperformed. Tommy Mace comes to mind from 2 years ago's class, but he's not as highly ranked. So Burns is the only guy I've heard get some hype where I'm kind of like, I don't see him as a starter right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on Tanner Burns. Having watched him the last 2 years between Lake County and Akron, he had some good moments at Lake County. The stuff is there. Clearly, he can be a major league pitcher. Fastball velocity has waned for him for sure. He's relied more on the secondaries. There's been injuries. There were injury concerns back in college. And as of right now, I would probably more safely project him as a reliever. And I've got him way down my list at 44, actually. There's a lot of places where he's top 20. He's 44 for me right now. I don't know how. I mean, he's got to have the velocity to be an impact reliever. Maybe he goes to the bullpen and he ends up being able to hold the velocity better. So that's probably where
49 for me.
Yeah, so we're close on that, and he might make us look bad, right? So we'll see. I mean, we haven't seen him as a reliever yet, and maybe he'll come back this year healthy as a starter. But the track record says that he has not been able to hold the stuff and the velocity over a full season. So I'm with you on Burns a little bit. The other guy I'd probably throw a lot of caution out is probably, I feel like it's risky to say this, but Jose Tena. I feel like Jose Tena has been pushed up a lot of places, and I struggle with this one because Tena could play shortstop. He is a great I don't know if I should say great. He's a good shortstop. He is a quality defender at shortstop, I think. So that gives him a certain amount of floor as a prospect. If you're able to play the infield, especially shortstop, to a good degree defensively, and you're a left-handed hitter, you're going to have more chances. He's a good runner. So he has some skills there that are going to give him a good floor. But I see a lot of people really think the bat's going to be good. And it's like the approach is so aggressive, and there's a lot of places to beat him as a hitter. He doesn't get the stuff low in the zone very well. And I mean, he does low and inside, but he chases. He just has, this is a type of profile I have a blind spot to. This is an Oscar Gonzalez type thing, right? Jose Tena doesn't strike out a lot. Like, it's not like he's got a strikeout rate that's like, wow, he's never going to make the majors. Like, he's not striking out like John Kensington-Noel. He's not striking out like Bobby Bradley. It's a low to mid 20s strikeout profile, but there's just no walks. And it's very, batting average on balls and play dependent. I don't think he has the exit velocity as a lot of guys do either. Like Oscar Gonzalez, at least, always hit the ball well, performed like crazy in the minors. We just didn't believe it. I didn't. And the exit velocities were always pretty good. At least they were in 2021 when he had his breakout. I don't think the same holds for Tena. I just don't know. And like, he's had a 16-10 season. Last year he hit 14 homers, stole 8 bases. And he's only 21. So maybe when he catches up age-wise. Remember what we said? Remember you said you can't, put too much stock in the age thing, because if you're a good performing prospect, no matter what age you are, you're going to show flashes. And he showed flashes, and the other thing I worry about too is this is going to be his second major league option, his minor league option this year coming up. The time is limited for him to make it work on the level. So he might go back to AAA this year. We'll see what happens. But I just have a lot of concerns about if the bat's ever going to play enough for him to be a regular. I think it's more likely he's a bench player because of the bat. Like maybe, I don't know, Jonathan Scope has maybe made that profile work, and he was a good defender at second last year by the metrics. And he's been a regular, but I don't know. It's one of those high risk profiles, right?
Yeah, no, it's Jonathan. Scope has also been a really good defender, and that's about it. Like, it's which is what you're saying, but it's like Scope isn't really a starter for most good teams. So,
well, and he's also second base only, and he hasn't played short. So, but he's also had a couple 20 home run seasons and maybe a 30 home run season, if I'm not mistaken. So, I don't even know if Tana gets to that point just because of the strikeouts or the fact that he's so aggressive. I know Scope is aggressive too, but the numbers don't quite add up. Who is your underrated prospect before we get out of here?
So I had a hard time with this one because like I was too much in my own head, where I was definitely like, oh, but this guy's kind of interesting and this guy's kind of interesting. Apparently this is, side note, my cat's new thing is just sit here and bathe herself off the corner. That's 2 shows in a row. No decency.
Underrated.
With these, no decency with these small furry beasties. Speaking of small furry beasties, I'm kidding. No, I have no idea about the fur level of this player, but I feel like right now Cody Morris is, he's not very small either, but it's amazing to me the number of places that didn't even rank him in the top 20. This stuff is really good. I understand the health, but his stuff is comparable with the big 3. Mm-hmm. He has that much swing and miss ability. If you think he's going to be a reliever, it does push him down, but he should absolutely still be a top 10 talent because he's going to be an elite reliever if that's what he is. Like, he's going to be in that class of like 99 and Trevor Stephan and what we saw this past year. I firmly believe that. I'm not going to put anyone in the Class A class because honestly, I think Class A is in a Hall of Fame class right now if he keeps doing what he's doing. But I think, that next tier down, I think Morris could absolutely be that. It's kind of down to him and Cantillo. I also think people are not high enough on Cantillo. I get it. Both are injury guys, but that's mine.
Yeah, the injuries are definitely a factor and stuff like this. I don't want to rely too heavily on that because there's a reason people are lower on them. It's because of the injuries. There's a lot of guys I consider. I'm going to cheat if you'll allow me a little bit here to do a pitcher and a hitter because I had a hard time deciding here.
Go for it.
I think for hitter, I could have gone in a lot of directions here. I love Nate Furman. I like Mike Caprice. I think Gabriel Rodriguez is a guy everyone's sleeping on. He had a very solid, underrated year last year in Lake County.
I debated him.
He had a very poor 2021 coming back from the pandemic loss season. Showed some power, showed some pitch recognition skills. The defense at third is fantastic. So I think it might be a struggle for him in AA this year just because of age and catching up and everything. And he did have labrum surgery or some sort of shoulder surgery over the offseason. He's healthy now and he's swinging a bat, so that's not as big a deal. But I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. I think he was one of the highest paid players among the draft class among the Guardians, I think in 2017, 18. Was it 18? He was their highest paid player.
Wait, you said draft class. That threw me off. International, right?
Oh, international. Sorry.
Yes, he's the highest. He got the highest bonus ever of an international prospect. They have given out now counting Danny Baez.
Yeah,
not counting like that, but yeah. No, I just want to make sure. I'm like, wait, is there another? I don't know. Sometimes I get in my own head, but
people have forgotten about that a little bit. And pitcher wise, I would probably have to go with Ryan Webb. I think Ryan Webb was a fantastic pitcher in college, and this is probably an injury one too. To be fair, people probably haven't seen him a lot, and he was coming off Tommy John, but he is one of those guys I feel like fits in the Guardians class where, oh, I'm sorry, and Ryan, I should have made going off Ryan. I meant to say Jack Leftwich. Ryan Webb is one of them. Jack Leftwich is another guy too. Had a fantastic year last year. Should have started the year in Lake County. Started in Lynchburg because of pitching depth and didn't have a innings for him at Lake County. They should have flopped him and Tommy Mace because Mace struggled. But Jack Leftwich, I think I'll give you a preview tomorrow. Jack Leftwich might be my breakout for this year. Might be.
Yeah, he's certainly that 2021 draft class is the gift that keeps on giving.
It might be might rival the 2016 draft class.
Or go back to 2011. It's was it 20? So it's 5 years between 2011, 2016, 5 years between 2016, 2021. I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah,
I'm seeing a pattern, just stating it. Every 5 years is a historically great draft. And then I'll just throw this in. The other fun little fact with those is in both cases, they traded for additional players later from those classes that helped their core. So some fun layers upon layers to connect those classes. But on behalf of Justin, I am Jeff. I'm going to thank you for listening. listening, rating, reviewing, downloading. It helps. Remember to click the subscribe, share it with a friend, tell everyone you know. Make sure you're watching daily. Let us know what you want to watch. Yesterday's show, I'm just going to put it out there, kind of fell flat on its face. So let us know what wasn't interesting. Does World Baseball Classic not have appeal? Is there something you'd prefer us to talk about? Please, we will take that in. Let us know. And go Guardians, go. So we're just gonna do the rest of the top 5 now with with all the listeners missing out. I'm kidding. We should rule change. I don't know.
I don't have much else. That's about all I got.
Yeah. So I caught the last 2 coughs. I didn't get the after show one. So listen, the extra runner. I had a feeling it was here to stay. Baseball doesn't want these never-ending affairs where guys are left out to dry and everything else. And in some respects, it's like, how many games does that really affect? I kind of get it. Like, it makes more sense in some regards. Again, like, do you want to burn your entire bullpen on one game and have nothing left? Then have to, especially now that they've gotten rid of the rule, or made the rules, I should say, that like make it harder to shuffle guys up and down between AAA. You can't do the streaming method the Rays used to do. So this was probably something we should have all known was coming. I don't love it, but I get it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it in general. It's definitely good in the minor leagues. Let me tell you that. It is definitely good in the minor leagues. They need that. You can't have pitching staffs get decimated in the minor leagues. And it's a good chance for situational baseball in the minors, too. I'm not saying I like bunting, but there are some...
Boo! Yeah. I'm always going to boo bunting.
There is some good chance for situational baseball in the minor leagues, especially get guys out the field. My thing has been this. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers and see what the percentage of games go beyond 12 innings. Like, yes, 9 innings is enough. God forbid they ever go below 9. If we ever get to a point, this really ticked me off the last couple of years. I understand it's a prospect game and it's they're trying to keep guys healthy and they don't want to risk anything. But you notice that the prospect game in the All-Star game has gone down to 7 innings the last couple of years. That really peeves me because as someone who loves the prospect game, I hate that. And I always would be concerned they would cut innings like that in the actual game. I don't know if they ever will. 9 innings to me is perfectly fine. But how many games were going 12, 13 innings with regularity? I'd have to go back and do the math for the last 10 years and see what the percentage is. My in between was always okay. I definitely agree with the runner on second rule to a point, but what about let's go the 10th and 11th inning? Let's just play it regular, okay? And if nobody scores a run, nobody wins. We go to the 12th inning. Okay, runner on second is fine because you've given teams 6 outs to try to put this thing to bed, and they haven't. After that, I don't know how that would affect bullpens, would affect things differently, but I don't know. I think it would be a nice compromise, right? You don't have to go with a wild rule in the 10th inning right away and make a big change. You give teams some time to figure it out, and then if they don't figure it out, then you step in and you put the runner on second and try to get this thing over with. Or maybe you just do the 10th. I don't know. Maybe just do one more inning. Maybe just do a 10th. I still think they could at least give you one more shot to put it to bed, right? Is that asking too much to do 3 to 6 outs before resorting there? Like I said, I'm okay with the rule. Do you think it's okay to ask for 3 to 6 more outs to try to do it within the normal rules before you go to a special extra innings rule? Or does it not matter?
For what baseball wants, I think it does matter. I think they're just interested in the game's ending. That they hear the complaints about game length, and that's just going to add to it. And that, if you do that, then you're still extending the game, 3 more innings before you get to the rule that typically ends it. I don't know about the data. I'd have to really look at it. It's such a low percentage in general. But yeah, I don't love it, but I get it. As I stated earlier, I think, it's just in the interest of preserving arms, preserving players, and avoiding position players pitching.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I don't know. Why not? Why is asking for 3 to 6 more outs to do it the normal way Is it arbitrary? Does it make a difference? Would you like to see?
It's probably another like 30, 40 minutes of game length, you think, between both sides batting?
But does the game length matter? Especially now you have the pitch clock, right? Does it matter as much?
I think yes, it still does. They're trying to get the game shorter. That's one of the things. I mean, the pitch clock is part of it, but that's also what this rule is. Like, this is all about shorting games. I mean, that is one of the big complaints.
And I don't think the players are against it. I think it's hard on the relievers. Like, it's hard to ask a reliever to come on and throw pitches with a guy already on that he didn't put there. It's annoying right away. I guess they're getting used to it to an extent, so maybe it doesn't matter as much. But, it's also some bad luck, too. Like, think of how many times, like, you're saying Emmanuel Clase is on maybe a Hall of Fame track. The blown saves he does have, it comes from, like, weird balls in play. Sometimes he just doesn't have it, and, he gives up a little more contact because he's not he has that cutter that sometimes leads to ground balls instead of strikeouts. But, like, you put a guy on second to start the inning like that, and all of a sudden you get a ground ball to the right side. Guess what? You've got a run scored, and that guy shouldn't even been there because it wasn't his fault. So I kind of have a problem with that, I guess. Like, I don't know. I'm like a mix between new school and old school. I like the new school stuff, but there are certain old school things I do like, and I don't know. I guess if your starter gets knocked out early and you're, jamming your bullpen the whole game and you tie it up and you go to extra innings. Yeah. But by the 10th inning and maybe by the 11th inning, you should have already used your best reliever in theory. If it's a close game, you should have already used your best reliever to get to that point. So I don't know. If you haven't, I would like to give them one more chance. Like I said, 3, I'm going to stay in the camp. Maybe it's arbitrary. I know they want to shorten games, but I don't think 3 to 6 outs is asking a whole lot. Let us know if you think it would be a nice, happy compromise. I don't know. Maybe the players don't care. Maybe they want to get games over with too.
I say no ghost runner, but once you hit extra innings, only hitters can pitch.
Oh my! Well, that's the other rule, right?
Yeah.
No position players can pitch until extra innings or in the ninth. I think it's the 9th inning if you're down by 10, or the bottom of the 8th if you're down. Yeah,
this is such classic Major League Baseball, right? Like, because how excited it became, like, meme worthy. People talked about it every time there's a hitter on the mound. It got them attention. And listen, whenever these situations arose, it was because the game was not really a competitive game anymore. I don't think it's really that big of a risk. I think for a lot of hitters, they enjoy getting those opportunities to do it. It's fun. They're changing the rule because it became newsworthy instead of being like, hey, this became newsworthy. Let's just embrace it. Like, I hate this more than the other rule.
Really? I think
is my hot take.
See, I think this got out of control. I think we saw instances last year where, like, the Angels and the Cubs or whoever else, like, there were times where teams were putting a position player in and they were down like 6 or 7 in the 7th inning or the 8th inning. And it's like, okay, that's a little ridiculous. Like that that's what brought this on. Is
most of those games, like 95, especially when you have the Cubs and the Angels, you're probably going to lose those games 100% of the time.
Well, yeah, but I still think that's too early to do it. I think you cannot have. There has to be.
If it's about entertainment, they entertain fans who are not going to be entertained if you're a fan of those.
Yeah, but the teams aren't doing it to entertain fans. They are doing it to save their bullpen, and I understand that. But I'm sorry, you cannot have. You have to have some sort of provision in place. You cannot go out there down 6. What's more entertaining to fans? Tell me this. Is it more entertaining to a fan that you're down 6 runs in the 8th inning and you have a 6-run comeback? Or is it more entertaining to have a position player pitch, give up like 2 home runs, and all of a sudden you're down by 10 and the game's over? What's more fun? I know the odds are lower.
Yeah.
I know the odds are lower to come back. I know.
Probably lower odds than, the 12-inning baseball game.
But putting the position player in the pitch, more likely that lead is going to stretch, not stay the same.
No, I agree.
Unless guys aren't trying.
I just think in general with this, it's listen, the reason teams were doing it is because it's a smarter move. One game is not worth blowing your pen up over, like especially when you're already down by that many. The likelihood you're getting such a terrible return on investment by sending your relievers out that it made sense. Like it might have gotten out of hand, but it's because the whole valuation of it is so much lower in using those leverage relievers, not having them available. To go out and go to rather than throw the position player, like it's the right call. It's 100% the right call. But that's why they had to make rule changes, or we would have probably seen it more.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
One game isn't worth four. Yeah, and
yeah, it's good.
But at the same time, I also think again, it does feel like such a baseball thing to do, where this was kind of generally a thing that got like, hey, did you see that? Or it made, people made GIFs, people talked about on Twitter, it trended every time. And anytime something trends on Twitter, baseball seems to not know how to handle it. So it's I'm not saying it's necessarily something that needs to be, more of it in the game or anything like that. But I just think it's so very baseball to have something that like brought them attention to crack down on it. Like, it seems like when positive, because it's, I mean, one could argue it's not positive attention, but it's definitely not super negative attention. So I would have just, I don't know. I get why you had to do it, because the rates would have probably doubled this year for players pitching, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
Or position players pitching, I should say.
I think it's good there's a safeguard in place. Heck, I even think there should be a penalty for it. You should, if you are playing so badly and you put a position player into pitch, maybe there should be a penalty. Maybe that position player shouldn't be available the next day to play or something. I don't know. That's maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, because it's not that player's fault, but I don't know. Maybe there should be some sort of penalty for putting a position player into pitch, like especially before a certain inning. I don't know. But that's the thing. The teams aren't doing this to appease the fans. Like, oh, this is we're getting our heads bashed in. This is going to be funny. Like, yes, the fans do think it's funny and it's a good meme, but it's not. I'm sorry, it's not good for baseball. It's not good for the sport, because it's not good for competitiveness. It's only okay. It's only good. It's fine in the way baseball has done. I'm going to give baseball props for this. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say I like the stipulation they put in. If it's the ninth inning and they're down by 10, I don't give a crap. I'm going to watch it, and it's going to be funny at that point. I think what had been happening, where like I said, the instances where you're getting a 6 or 7 run deficit in the 8th inning or the 7th inning and you're doing it, it's a little ridiculous. So I applaud Major League Baseball for taking that step, at least on the interest of competitiveness. And I guess if you want to keep it where you are allowed to put a position player into pitch before the 9th inning and less than 10 runs, then there should be some sort of penalty. I don't know what that penalty is, because it's not fair to penalize the guy you're putting in, I suppose, but maybe there should have been some sort of penalty. I don't know, but I'm fine with this rule change. I think it needed to happen for sure, because like I said, it had nothing to do with the fans. It had nothing to do with protecting their bullpen. And I understand why they're doing it, but it was getting out of control. I still think that I don't understand why baseball hasn't gone to this model. You've got the NBA, you've got the NFL, and the NHL all have like a whatever number roster they have these days. I don't know, but you have guys each night who are healthy scratches, right? Guys that aren't active. I don't understand why baseball doesn't have like a 30-man roster and 4 guys are just inactive that night, or even a 28. Like it expands to 28 in September. I don't know why it's not 28 and then 2 guys just aren't available that night. And it'll always be, last night's starting pitcher. It'll always be maybe a reliever that has pitched 2 nights in a row, so he's not pitching. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why baseball hasn't done that. That would help this issue as well, right? Am I wrong?
I just don't think it's that big of an issue. I was just kind of pulling up and looking at stuff. It's like your chances of winning late in the game when you are down 6 or more runs is like, it looks like, this could be totally wrong. I might have set up this machine incorrectly. Looks like it's around like 2%. Like it's such a small percentage that like, I just don't think it's worth getting anything too big up on. It's just, it doesn't matter if it's even earlier in the game. Once you're down 6, you're 98% of the time going to lose. So I don't know, like I can see all sides of it, and adding to the roster makes sense, but baseball is never going to agree to that because they don't want to have to expand and pay guys. So,
Yeah, that's true.
They're never going to agree to an additional 4 guys getting major league minimums.
Yeah. Well, the runner on second's here to stay. It's permanent.
Yeah. And we'll have less hitters pitching. But
that's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. They're interesting in their own way. I think it's interesting. You and I had different stances on both of these. So that's nice. We for once didn't completely agree on something. So, okay. According to this, if it is a 98.3% chance of winning at a 5% 5-run differential, so you have a 1.6% chance of winning. So that's where I'm just like,
that's still more fun than if you come back from that deficit that late. Think about.
And I remember watching the Mariners come back, the most unbelievable comeback ever. I watched that live. My first game ever at Jacobs Field. Albert Bell hit a grand slam walk-off, where they came back against the Angels. Those are special moments. But again, I will argue when it's the Angels and Cubs, it's pretty much a 0.0% chance of comeback with the way those teams were built and played.
Those fans are going to be coming for you tomorrow.
Go ahead, Cubs fans. You were not good last year. And Angels fans, I want you to be good.
Yeah, in spite of the owner. Yeah, I would rather see the potential comeback, though. Imagine if Cleveland had put in a position player in that game against the Mariners. They would never come back. They never would have come back. I know the odds are low, but in my heart, I would rather see the epic comeback versus a position player pitching, because that one is more statistically improbable than the other, and the one is just a joke for a few minutes. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. I think in general, it's been interesting to see how much they're, when you look at the pitch clock, you look at these rule changes, you look at banning the shift. All of this is an attempt to, streamline the game, make it a little quicker. They're trying to win the fan, but it's also interesting from their perspective. Like, they enacted, trying to get fans more interested. They also enacted the rules about scuffing baseballs, then clearly didn't follow up on it, even though that reduces runs. And everyone knows that the baseball boom was driven by home runs and big offense, not pitching. So, it's kind of interesting that they make all these rules. We've seen so many of these rules. The shift is there to supposedly help offense. And we still have not seen, they pretty much let guys who scuff baseballs go crazy with their Vaseline, go crazy with their sweat. I know you can't really ban sweat, but they haven't, everything else. It's kind of interesting that they still are letting that go. The inconsistencies with the way baseball is run will drive you mad. So I'm just going to stop myself now.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. I'd still rather see, I don't know. I've said all my pieces on that. I don't know if I can really say more than I've already said. But that's repeating myself.
I just wanted to see Cecil Fielder pitch. That's all. Is that too much to ask for? I think the rule should be the heaviest guy on your team should have to be your position player pitcher. Because if we're going to go for all the lulls and memes, then that's the way to maximize it. And I say this again as a large man. So I'm not saying this to shame anyone, but if we're going to go for lulls and memes, then that's the way to go. Now that I've gotten myself in trouble yet again, I want to say thank you all for listening, rating and reviewing, downloading. It helps. Remember to subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a coworker, hey, if you got that family member that you really get uncomfortable talking about because they want to talk politics or religion, get them listening to the show. Maybe you can talk about the podcast instead of those hot button issions that you don't want to talk about. This is your way to shift the conversation. Yeah. This is your way to shift the conversation to baseball. Now, I don't think, in your comments below, what do you want to hear? Let us know. Like I said, yesterday's show, mentioned it before, full flat on its face. We don't like to see that. So what could we do? What do we need to avoid? Is the World Baseball Classic just no? Is it you guys really don't like talks about Melby's good old MB? Let us know below. We'll work with you. We'll work through this. So, but Friday's show was unbelievable. Top 5 all time. So thank you all, and go Guardians, go.